We are demanding action. I'm Jessica Denson, and this is Lights On. Welcome to Lights On. I'm just returning from, honestly, a historic, epic week in Washington, D.C., where we hosted Remove the Regime, the Removal Coalition, the organization that I founded to focus exclusively on constitutionally removing this illegal regime from office, had a historic event in the nation's capital with Representative Al Green, veterans, leaders of the removal coalition, and the push to impeach and remove Trump from office. It was truly, truly extraordinary. We marched with hundreds of people. I think the estimate we had from the Park Police was over 1,500 people marched with us from Union Station to the Capitol to make demands, peaceful but unmistakable demands, in those halls of Congress. It was truly a historic week. You're in for a very special treat today because I'm going to give you footage and content that I was not otherwise able to share, as I was constantly on the move throughout the week. So you're going to get that all in this episode today. If you're not already subscribed, please subscribe to the Jessica Denson YouTube channel where you are watching this. This is the home for action. I do this show as a parallel piece of my activism, and for that reason exclusively, because this platform is vital. It's vital to amplifying the actual remedies we have, not just the diagnoses of the insanity, but the actual remedies we have to get this illegal administration out of power. Just this week, this illegal regime had an extrajudicial killing of 11 people that they alleged were drug traffickers. They tried to change this week the name of the Department of Defense to the Department of War. Yet another court ruling came down today calling the actions of this administration arbitrary and capricious, this time blocking their ending of legal protections for 1.1 million Venezuelans and Haitians. This is also a horrible, horrible day for the Trump administration as far as the jobs report. It's just been a terrible hit to the economy, what this administration has done with this crackdown, not on violent criminals, but on migrant workers in this country. Their slashing of federal agencies, the slashes at agencies like PBS and the Department of Education. In particular, the job numbers hit extremely hard for Black women in this country. It's just an overall destructive administration, of course, illegal in its inception for being a constitutional violation of Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. So really, there is no time to waste. That was the theme this week in Washington, D.C. I was also at the Epstein Survivors Conference. I spoke to Marjorie Taylor Green. You're going to hear that interaction. You're going to hear my speaking at a protest that we had at AIPAC against the war in Gaza, the unthinkable killing, criminal annihilation of the Palestinian people that is going on in broad daylight. So a lot of very, very good content. We were being trailed in the halls of Congress by Don Lemon, who was streaming a lot of our interactions on his channel. So I clipped some of the very significant ones, including in Hakeem Jeffrey's office for you today. So we're going to play all that. I just want to take a moment at the beginning here to thank you profusely from the bottom of my heart for all of the support that you have given me. I told you last week that I am continuing to fight a 8-year legal battle with the Trump campaign that my initial lawyers have abandoned me on. And so many of you came out to support me. You've supported me financially at thejessicadenson.com/donate. I just want to thank you so much for that from the bottom of my heart. If you want to continue to do that or haven't yet, you can do it at thejessicadenson.com/donate. I'm almost speechless in my gratitude for the love and support that you have shown there. Also this week, I've got to tell you, every time I go to one of these protests, I meet people who recognize me and thank me. I met so many of you this week who were just really touched my heart so much when you came up and introduced yourselves and told me what my leadership has meant to you in this movement, what Lights On has meant, what the Removal Coalition and the meaning of that has meant to you. And so thank you so much for not being complacent. Thank you for joining me in this movement. I mean, you're the reason we have it, because you have joined and shown up and put yourself on the line. So again, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for that. We also ran into a lot of our OGs from 14th Now. We initially were standing in those streets of DC in the bitter cold where we couldn't feel our feet back in early January 3rd through 5th, demanding that Congress reject this illegal presidency. So I got to see a lot of you again for the first time since January. Such a pleasure. A lot of other very familiar faces that we see, Sergeant Rhodes, Lady Liberty, all of our amazing friends in the veteran community showing up time and again at these protests. I can't, like I said, I can't thank you enough. If everybody were like you, if everybody were doing what you are doing to show up, we wouldn't be in this situation. We would be shutting this country down. The media, as you're going to hear today from Rep. Green, who gave us a shout out on the floor of the House yesterday, the media wouldn't be able to ignore us because it would just be literally taking over this country, our peaceful, unmistakable presence. So to all of those who have shown up with us, refuse to be silent, put their lives aside, made so many sacrifices to be there. And God knows we all have our own lives going on in the backdrop of this. Somebody shared a picture of a cat, and it reminded me of a rescue dog that my family is taking care of right now. And I mean, that's just one example of the multitude of real life circumstances that we are all dealing with as we make these sacrifices to show up and to demand an end to this. So you all are making history. You are the hope. If we are going to get out of this, you are the reason that we are going to. And this platform exists to amplify that message. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for being in it with me. I want to start off with the footage that I'm going to share with you with this interaction I had with a woman. She was just telling me about the speeches. And by the way, please go back to the live from Tuesday and watch the entire program of speeches from 9-2. I gave a speech, Rep. Green, Carlos, Sergeant Rhodes, number of members of FLAIR, including a sexual abuse survivor, Jolly Good Ginger. You got to hear these speeches because the tone of these, as you're going to hear this woman saying in just a moment, is not what you're hearing at every protest you're going to these days. This tone is what we need to change the trajectory of this country right now.
You were telling me about coming today.
This is the first rally I have been to since Trump's been reelected, and I've been to dozens of rallies. And this is the first one where I feel like the leaders are ahead of me and they're bringing us along, and it feels great. No more decorum, no more let's wait and see, no more let's bring the middle, let's fucking go.
Thank you, Lynn.
Lynn. So that was, I think she was one of so many that gave us that same sort of sentiment, that same sort of feedback. And I'm happy to bring it to you. I'm honored to have brought this coalition together, these forces together, to go into the halls of Congress with you, literally give the country and the world the flip side of that deadly insurrection of January 6th, showing them what peaceful marching into the Capitol, the People's House, really, really looks like. As I mentioned, we were being trailed by Don Lemon for a lot of this activity, and we did have an interaction in Marjorie Taylor Green's office. It was pretty, basically they didn't want us in there with the cameras. They were pretty reactive to Don Lemon bringing his crew in with the cameras, and we walked out and they slammed the door on us. And that was pretty much the extent of that. It got a lot of heat on social media. I wanted to share with you some of the more, in my opinion, substantial interactions we had. If you're watching this program, that my major heat is on the Democrats, because we know who the Republicans are. They tell us all the time, and that doesn't mean we have to work on them, because we're going to get to a point where we have to obviously flip them. And I think even just this week, as I'm going to talk about in a minute, we saw so many examples of people moving across the aisle. But we have to start with our own leaders that pretend and purport to represent the ideals that are going to keep this country free and get Trump out of office. And if even they are not willing to do it now, we have to be relentless in our heat on them. We cannot be giving them money when they do something performative. We cannot be giving them any support when it is literally on them, according to the platform that they espouse, to be the leaders that we need. And so I'm going to show you in just a moment an interaction from Hakeem Jeffries' office that was, like I said, I think very significant. I want to start, though, with this interaction in Joaquin Castro's office. He did vote, as you'll hear, to further Al Green's article of impeachment that he forced a vote on a few months back. I think as much as shaming those who have not backed impeachment, we can show support for those who have and really encourage them to go farther than they have, to take, not just support it, but to be champions of it like Al Green has been. So here's that interaction from Rep. Castro's office. Representative Castro did vote in support of Representative Green's article of impeachment a few months back, didn't he?
Yes, he voted in favor. So it wasn't the actual impeachment measure.
It was, he voted against tabling it.
Yes.
He voted against tabling it. So first of all, I want to thank him for that, for at least standing on the right side the first time that his name and his colleague's name was put on the record. I just want to remind them, all these people today, we had over 1,000 people rally outside of Union Station. Every single one of them is calling for the impeachment and removal of Donald Trump now, not waiting until the midterms. Representative Al Green has taken the lead, filing articles of impeachment. I have seen so much leadership from Rep. Castro on issues from Gaza to the tyranny of this presidency. It would be wonderful for him to file his own articles of impeachment. Would we like to see Rep. Castro file articles of impeachment? Yes. Yes. And he could force a vote any single day of the week. Rule 9, it empowers any member of this body in the minority or majority to force a vote any day of the week. So that's what we are demanding. We also, as he knows, we all know he was Jeffrey Epstein's best friend, and I'm sure he's supporting full release of those Epstein files. But we need, especially Democrats right now, to take the leadership standpoint on impeachment and removal and before the midterms. If they have any hope of getting reelected, they need to step up now.
And I can certainly pass that and all of your concerns to the Congress.
So we are from, just so you know, we're from FLAIR. We're from the Removal Coalition, which FLAIR is under that umbrella. Also American Opposition, Citizens Impeachment, 5051 DC. Many organizations are behind this effort today. And over 50% of Americans support impeachment and removal right now.
And I'll make sure to pass it along to the Congressman.
All right, so that's Rep. Castro's office. Then we found that we were in the right building for Hakeem Jeffries, which I was very, very excited about because, as we know, minority leader currently, so many people in this country are utterly disgusted with the seeming lack of spine and action and resolve and determination and lack of tolerance for this dictatorial authoritarian regime that we have. And Hakeem Jeffries is in a very, very unique position to change that as minority leader. We had an extended visit in his office. I'm going to play most of it for you right now.
Of the Removal Coalition of American Opposition, the 5051 indivisible, I think we can all speak that he just hasn't been the leader that we need in this moment.
How are you? I'm Jacob. Nice to see you.
How are you?
Hi, Jacob. These guys are here.
Yes, how are you guys?
Yeah, I just want to pass on the message that when Hakeem Jeffries voted against Al Green's article for impeachment, voted to table that, I think a lot of Americans were in shock. They were in shock when the Democratic leadership was rallying their own, whipping their own members to vote against the impeachment of this authoritarian, illegal president. Shocked. I know a lot of the leadership right now thinks that their winning strategy for the midterms is waiting and keeping some members safe, not putting impeachment on the table until the midterms. I'm going to tell you something. You're living in a fantasy land if anybody thinks that we're going to have uninterrupted midterms in this country. But even if we do, if we're lucky enough to, and we do everything to pull out the vote and make it happen, you know what people are going to vote for? They're going to vote for fighters that are fighting right now, that are not waiting until after you have your seats in power. Hakeem Jeffries, every single one of the representatives in this body could force a vote on impeachment any single day of the week. Any single day of the week. Imagine the narrative shift that could happen in this country if the Democrats were unified for removal. Imagine.
Yes.
Imagine if that was the narrative. This entire Democratic caucus wants this man removed. It's what the people want, over 50% of this country. What is wrong with leadership on the so-called pro-democracy side who is not taking this stand now? We cannot wait for the midterms. The moment is now. Please understand the gravity. Please pass that on to the leader. Please ask him to step up. It's never too late, but we're waiting. We are running out of time.
Okay, and what's your name?
Jessica Denson, Removal
Jake.
Coalition. Jake, nice to meet you.
And I'm 2 blocks from Federal Plaza, and like, yeah, we're waiting for like him to come in and, you know, take over, you know, like Chicago. Like, and I also work with smartelections.us, so like that's, you know, that's
Yeah, there's a lot of legitimate questions about the legitimacy of
I'm an 80
2024.
widow. I'm there since 1987. I've never seen anything like this. I've been to every protest. I'm documenting every protest for Congress.
It's
and
an
I've been
emergency.
writing a
It's
petition.
an emergency.
Yeah, it's no joke. Like, we took a
Certainly.
bus.
Trump has normalized so many things in this country which were heinous, which were absolutely heinous, okay? Now, don't be concerned about normalizing impeachment, okay? That should not be your problem, our problem. If it's normalized, at least it was done for the right reason.
Exactly.
Okay? And that's what I know you guys are worried about.
And
Normalizing impeachment, go for it, go for it.
Yeah, he's normalized every lawless, unconstitutional act. So scared all of you into retreat that you can't even use the one constitutional tool that we have right now. Forget Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, because you guys all abandoned us on that one too. But you can't use the one constitutional tool that we have now to get rid of this man, who is literally instituting fascism a la Nazi Germany in the 30s today in 2025 in the United States of America.
He's fanboying Putin publicly. No president of the United States has ever done that. We're against Russia. We need to be full on for Ukraine.
Yeah.
And that's why, you know, he's a traitor to our country.
Yes, you know, every member of this body, of this house, took an oath to defend against enemies, foreign and domestic. We have a Russian
Right outside the door, there's about 5 times as many people you got right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're coming back. We're coming back. We're coming back regularly, once a week at least.
So you'll
We'll
learn
be back.
places, and we are friendly.
Yeah.
And the lives of millions of people are on the line. We're friendly and we're angry.
My parents grew up during Nazi Germany, like, and then I grew up here, and now this.
Yeah.
No fucking way.
And women's rights are going backwards. You know, I've been fighting misogyny my whole life. I'm tired of it. We should all be working together. And the Democrats need to unite like the Republicans do. We can't keep fighting infighting.
I have an idea. Rep. Jeffries can do an alphabet speech about all of the impeachable offenses from A to Z. I'm sure he could find
I'll pass it along. Plenty of material.
I like it.
There's a lot of
So please, this is so serious, and people are looking to Democrats. It's why you guys, I mean, Trump is vastly unpopular, but opposition should be heralded and paraded right now, but they're hated because they're not stepping up. This is an opportunity for heroism for Rep. Jeffries and for every one of his caucus. Step up and take that mantle.
Because they're going to get all the
And you know
Democrats
what?
out.
We're not afraid. We're here.
Yeah.
So you just take some of the strength from us.
Yes.
Don't
Be brave.
afraid.
Be brave.
Don't be afraid.
Yeah.
Well, I can say I'm staff assistant
No, but you're
for
gonna
Peter
pass
Jeffries,
this
and
on.
I can pass this along.
And
It's
we're
my
gonna
role
have a
to
lot of content
hear
that's
from you
gonna be
guys.
shared all
Thank
over the
you.
place, so you can tell him to watch this entire interaction. Again, Removal Coalition, flare that encampment at Union Station, American opposition, citizens impeachment, free speech for people. We are 550-51,
Indivisible.
indivisible, veterans,
Burning River.
Burning River. We
Public
could go
citizen.
on.
Public
Public
citizen.
citizen, Free DC has made a statement in
Absolute
favor of
facts.
impeachment. It's all of us. It's all of us. We're all standing out here thinking, what the hell is going on? Why are you not taking action right now? Please.
People are all over the nation coming. I'm from Cleveland. I mean, I've met all the people from all over the nation here.
We took a bus at midnight to be here.
Jessica and I have spoken to crowds of 250,000 people. We are out there leading a movement, and we need allies here. And I've called you guys 3 times. You've never answered my call.
If we can do more, can you tell us what we should be doing?
You know, talking about this and drumming up public opinion to recognize the horrors that the president is exhibiting on the American people right now is incredibly important.
There you go. Horrors the president is exhibiting. He acknowledges it. And what does he say? He says, we need the people. I mean, it's kind of like, this is God bless him, Jake, and we're going to be in touch with Jake more. But these people are supposed to be leaders. They are supposed to be leading thought. And because they have not been, we, the people, have had to step in and take that leadership role over. But this is the impact that we are having. This is what happens. The respect that we get from someone like Jake in that office for Leader Jeffries is because we are showing up, because we are being too visible and too vocal to ignore, because we are bringing literally into their offices in person, in physical form, our bodies right there, not on social media, literally putting our feet there in front of them, telling them what we feel and what we see and what we know needs to be done. And that's the impact we're having. So I just want to thank everybody for doing this. Thank Flair for having that 24/7 presence at Union Station and for all of the congressional visits, because they do it. So they do it not just on the days that we have a massive rally like Remove the Regime on 9/2. They're doing it daily. They're doing it literally daily. My friend Cliff Cash, which deserves a massive, massive shout out. Activist, comedian Cliff Cash was largely responsible for the vision of 9/2. He was not able to join us in person on the 2nd, but he is going to be there on the 8th to do more congressional visits. So that's another opportunity if you're in the area to get to Washington, D.C. and do visits with Cliff Cash, starting off from the Flair encampment at Union Station. At the end of the show, I'm going to have another very special announcement about the next major removal coalition event, which also includes congressional visits. These are so vitally important. I mean, we are literally moving the needle, folks. This action is what is going to get us out of this. Impeachment is the constitutional remedy for a tyrant president, illegal president in this case. We have to force them to use it. We have to demand that they do. They work for us. So, as you know, this week has been also all about the Epstein survivors releasing those files, not just the ones that have been public for many, many years, which is a lot of what the DOJ has handed over, but complete unredacted release of those files. I was there also the next day, 9/3 in Washington, D.C. I had planned to stream the conference on the channel. I had set it up the night before. If any of you noticed that, I took it down right before because I realized I wasn't going to have an audio connection, but I just kind of threw up a live. It didn't have the greatest audio, actually really bad audio. So my apologies for that. I didn't want it to be an official audio or an official stream, but I kind of just still wanted to give you all the vibe of being there. And I'm sorry that it wasn't better quality. But anyway, I took from that, I was able to ask 2 very significant questions at that press conference and to Marjorie Taylor Green. And I've clipped them and I want to share them with you. Now, this one was asked, this is the question that is on everybody's mind about the 13-year-old who alleged that she was raped by Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump. I attempted to ask a question about that at the survivors conference. Here is that interaction.
When the survivors speak to, speaking of being threatened and being afraid to come forward with a story, to the case of Katie Johnson, who alleged that Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein raped her when she was 13 years old.
I do think it's worth saying, though, despite the comments that he made, Virginia Roberts Giuffre is an American hero. She is somebody without whom we would not be able to have this voice. She was the one who had the courage to name names, speak out against people, and she was standing up against everybody at one time with an enormous amount of pressure.
And most of these women are here because of Virginia Roberts.
Okay, so as you can see, their attorney, Brad Edwards, completely ignored my question and actually pivoted to speaking about Virginia Giuffre, who just moments before that interaction, somebody had tried to question the credibility. One of the so-called reporters in the gaggle had attempted to question the credibility of Virginia Giuffre. He was actually escorted off of the Triangle by Capitol Police. And instead of answering my question about Katie Roberts or letting any of the survivors answer that question, Brad Edwards pivoted to support of Virginia Giuffre. So I tried to get an answer on that or a comment on that. That said, Virginia Giuffre deserves all the support in the world. I, of course, have spoken of her on this program. She passed away just earlier this year, very curiously. She was one of the biggest advocates, the most brave and outspoken advocates for the survivors of Jeffrey Epstein, started an organization called SOAR, an incredible voice for survivors. So anyway, and after that, when the gaggle, when the conference ended, there was a separate kind of press circle surrounding Marjorie Taylor Green, who of course was there in a very seemingly rare moment of coalition with Representative Ro Khanna, who's a Democrat, and another Republican who has been very out front on this, Thomas Massie. Now, apparently Marjorie Taylor Green has been getting her own kind of heat from the administration, them calling her efforts and the efforts of these survivors a hoax, which she responded to in this little press gaggle. I wanted to ask her a very specific question about the double standard and hypocrisy here, and you're going to hear that question now.
What do you see as the distinction between believing these women and their stories and giving them a voice versus the dozens of credible accusations that have come forward of sexual abuse victims of Donald Trump? What is the distinction between their situations?
Well, I think what we're seeing here today is these women are standing out here and talking about how they got no justice under the Biden administration. They got no justice under the previous Trump administration. They got no justice under the Obama administration. They got no justice under the Bush administration. They got no justice anywhere. And these women, I haven't heard any of them accuse Donald Trump. But I
was asking though about the Trump's
I'm answering your question. This is about what they're talking about today. They were abused by Jeffrey Epstein, and they say others. They say there's a smaller group of them that were abused by other men, and they are going to discuss a time and a place if they want to name those names.
Congresswoman.
So she said, I'm not addressing that. I'm answering your question. Let the record reflect that she did not answer my question at all as to the accusations against Donald Trump, because of course there is no distinction between the women who suffered, who came out so bravely to speak publicly about being sexually assaulted by Donald Trump, dozens and dozens of women, and these survivors of Jeffrey Epstein, whether or not they have been naming specifically Donald Trump. The one call out of Donald Trump's name that I recall at that press conference, which, by the way, if you didn't catch it, was interrupted by literally fighter jets flying over. They had to pause their speaking because the noise was so loud, because Trump's illegal regime put out orders for fighter jets to go over the Capitol while that press conference was happening. But the one comment that I did hear about Donald Trump was from one of the survivors who said that Epstein would brag about all of his friends, brag about all of his celebrity, powerful, so-called powerful friends. And of course, this was a manipulation tactic, an intimidation tactic to get these women to comply against their will and be afraid to speak out. But she said that the one friend that Epstein bragged about more than anyone else, was Donald Trump. And they talked about how much of a hurdle you have to overcome to be able to speak out. You have to overcome the hurdle of being threatened into financial oblivion if you dare speak out against these people. And they have the means through litigation to do that. God knows, I know what that is like because I lived it. Not, thank God, because I suffered sexual abuse from Donald Trump or anyone else, but because I went through a misogynist, terroristic workplace experience on his campaign. And when I sued about it, they tried to sue me into oblivion and make me be silenced and censored for the rest of my life as an American citizen, which is what I had no patience for. That experience, I mean, I gave up my life for that. That GoFundMe that I referenced at the top, or the donations for my lawsuit, is because I literally gave up my life to fight this administration when they were in power the last time, this campaign. And the notion that I or anyone else subject to this illegal NDA could go forward as an American citizen without being able to freely criticize a sitting president. It was obscene. It was disgusting. It was not something I was able to live with. But I literally gave up my livelihood and my life and committed my entire being to this fight for years. That is the cost of speaking out against people that have unlimited resources to silence you. Unlimited resources. So that's the hurdle that those survivors, just the ones that we've heard of, had to overcome. God only knows the hurdles that the victims of Epstein and Trump, to the extent that they are out there still, had to overcome or weren't able to overcome. Think about that. Think about that when you know that the only name that we know is Katie Johnson, who after filing a lawsuit 3 times retracted it. God only knows the threats that she was subject to, and that other women whose names we may not know, have been subject to because they were threatened into silence, because they were made to sign some illegal NDA or any kind of NDA. Maybe it was a settlement NDA. Maybe all of this has happened behind closed doors. I am living proof that Donald Trump is obsessed with non-disclosure agreements. And I wouldn't doubt for a second that there are women out there who are silenced for eternity because of what happened to them at the hands of Trump and Epstein. Just think about that. Think about that. So that was an incredible day. We moved out of the press gaggle, and I got to see all of those incredible signs that I'm going to show you in a minute when I put up Rep. Green's speech. And massive signs that said Katie Johnson was raped at 13, signs that said Epstein did not kill himself. Massive shout out to the Burning River Brigade who made these signs, who also sacrifices so much to show up. You got to understand, like, people are taking money out of their own pocketbooks. Nobody is paying us to do these things. We're literally just throwing in everything to demand that something be done right now and to not let this die. And this brings me back to the elected leaders, because I'm so disgusted when they put it back on us, the people, when they are literally working for us, the people, and we have already put them in power to uphold their oath and to do the work, the hard work that requires. So, again, massive credit to everyone who is showing up and making this showing. I'm going to share with you what we did the last event of the day, which was a protest at AIPAC, because God Almighty, another thing that we can't be silent on in this moment, and is the silence of the world has been just sickening in the face of the genocide in Gaza. I'm going to share with you some clips from that protest. But before I do that, here is Representative Al Green, who so wonderfully joined us at that march and rally, locked arms with us, and again gave us credit from the floor of the House yesterday when he spoke.
We the people protest. Protestation is a part of the fiber and fabric of this nation. When we can't prevail with all else, and we have an authoritarian president, then we the people will have the last word. And I was honored to participate in a march just this week. We the people, hundreds of people marched from over at Union Station through the Capitol. We the people. Nobody was arrested. The building was not assaulted. we the people just engaged in peaceful protest. People were very vocal with their language. Yes, there was profanity that was used by some of the persons. We the people, and that's not unusual at marches, by the way, but it was peaceful. It was nonviolent. A couple of names, Jessica was there, gave an awesome message. We had others there who gave messages as well. But my point is this as it relates to the march. That is a part of the reaction that we the people can have to let the status quo know that we're not happy, we're not satisfied with what's happening. But here's the thing that concerns me about this march and future marches. When they are peaceful and people protest in a nonviolent way, you don't get as much coverage as you do if you do something that breaks the law. Then the entire march is painted as one as being violent because a few people might do something that is contrary to the law. Few people. And then the entire march, they were violently protesting. But when you do it and you got hundreds of people marching, protesting peacefully, very little coverage. Very little coverage. I greatly regret that the status quo media chooses not to allow the marches that are peaceful to receive the same coverage as the marches wherein violence takes place. Some breach of the law takes place. But I assure you, the countdown to impeachment is on. We've laid the foundation previously for impeachment, and we will lay it again. We will lay it again. The countdown to impeachment continues.
Yes, and Representative Green, God bless him. Thank you so much. Sometimes, we go to these events and we see the most extraordinary love and support for Representative Green from our crowds and from the people supporting him. But I had this moment of realizing how very much he is standing alone in that body, in that House of Representatives, and how incredibly courageous and brave he has been. And he went on in that speech to talk about crossing the people that crossed the Edmund Pettus Bridge and him being in Congress because of Bloody Sunday, and him following through with his commitment to impeach this lawless president because of the sacrifices of those on that day. There is so much history here. There's so much courage and bravery in that man and his service to this country in Representative Green. And I really want us to acknowledge that. And he, like I said earlier, even these other members that have voted to further his articles, not to table them, there need to be more that are vocal. There need to be more that are vocal. He should not be standing alone in that body as the only real vocal champion on impeachment. I've heard stories even about how other representatives, some female representatives in particular, have been very, very pro-impeachment, and their staff, literally their staff, has convinced them not to be more forward with this and not to take on this mantle publicly. What a shame. What a shame. I think, though, we retain the power to change this dynamic 100% across the board. We retain the power to do that. And I want to give you another resource that I've mentioned many, many times, but if you're new, please go to citizensimpeachment.com. Citizensimpeachment.com. They are a nationwide grassroots citizen lobbying effort to get members of Congress to support and forward articles of impeachment now. They are part of the Removal Coalition. They're doing such important work, and you can get involved. That's one thing you can do if you can't, for whatever reason, physically be with us at these protests. It's one way that you can get involved from home by making calls and writing letters and being relentless. You can write op-eds about impeachment. There's so many ways that you can do this. Writing op-eds in local papers where representatives are is a very effective way, or letters to the editor, very effective way of getting their attention. So if you're not already involved with citizens impeachment, please do that at citizensimpeachment.com. Also, I'll put out a reminder for the Impeach Trump Again petition. That's at impeachtrumpagain.org. If you haven't signed that, please do that now. They are almost over 1 million signatures, and we're trying so hard to get them over that line to reach that benchmark. Impeachtrumpagain.org. Please sign that. Free speech for people. Another fearless leader, John Bonifaz, the president of that organization, has been in this fight. So, as I promised, we have a very special announcement at the end about the Removal Coalition and what's up next and how you can get involved. But of course, I want to shine a light on the protest we had at AIPAC. There were kind of 3 days of events, 9/1, 9/2, 9/3, in case people came early or stayed late. And Flair scheduled a protest at AIPAC on the 3rd. And I made sure that I could stay for that event because I have no words for what our country is allowing, what the world is allowing to continue in plain sight right now. Israeli forces are occupying Gaza City, imploding the last of the tall standing buildings. These people don't know where to go. They have been bombed and crushed to death. They are starving to death. They are being completely annihilated by a criminal, terroristic government in the state of Israel. Netanyahu is not anywhere near considering a ceasefire right now. The latest I heard is that Hamas offered a ceasefire to release the hostages. If this is really about the hostages, which are, again, just being used, these poor people that have been suffering for all this time are being used by their government as tools of oppression to keep to oppress the Israeli people and keep Benjamin Netanyahu and his corrupt criminal administration in power, just like Trump does. And the latest I heard is that Hamas's offer to release the hostages would be conditional on Israel removing from Gaza. And of course, that is not something that they will concede to, not for the lives of their own people, not even for the lives of their own people, because of course, they don't really care about the lives of their own hostages. They're as expendable to them as the Palestinian people are. And as I said, you're going to hear in a moment the footage that was captured by Status Coup. And shout out to Status Coup, shout out to News to Share. You know, there's a lot of criticism out there for all of the media who doesn't cover us, but there's some great independent media that does. So I do want to give them recognition. Status Coup is almost always on the scene. News to Share, always on the scene when we're in Washington, D.C. Some incredible journalists who have committed to this, to photojournalists who have come and shown up almost every time to document us, whether it's Matthew Wagner or Al Media. I believe it's Jose Meja that takes some beautiful, beautiful pictures for us. Diwato is another account on Instagram that takes beautiful photos a lot of our events. So you have these incredible, independent, truly independent journalists and photojournalists that are showing up to document this. But just going back to Gaza, as I was said in the speech that you're going to hear from me in a minute, before they started their recording, I was just comparing the situation with Netanyahu to the situation of Donald Trump. It kind of very much in line with his renaming the Department of Defense the Department of War today, because they thrive in chaos. They thrive in conflict. Netanyahu allowed October 7th to happen in spite of the warnings of female IDF soldiers who told them that an attack from Hamas was imminent because he needed a distraction from his corruption trial in Israel. Donald Trump needs a distraction every single day, needs a distraction from the Epstein files. He needs a distraction from impeachment, which, by the way, if it weren't effective, if it weren't the real thing that is going to get us out of this mess, Donald Trump would not be so afraid of it. And he is afraid of it. He has literally ordered museums to remove references of his impeachment from the historical record. He is trying intentionally to sabotage the career of Representative Al Green by gerrymandering him out of his seat. This administration is incredibly afraid of impeachment. And that's why we have to be incredibly relentless in demanding it. It is the solution that will get us out of this. So anyway, Authoritarianism 101, thriving in conflict, thriving in chaos. That is how dictators retain power. It is what Trump and Netanyahu do. It is what they do. So here is a little bit of my speech from outside AIPAC and a conversation I had with the reporter from Status Quo.
Their homes, as you kill journalists. Where's the press on this? Where are the allies in the media who speak out for the press? Israel has killed well over 200 journalists. It's probably a very low estimate since this war began. Where are the voices? Where are all the people that speak out in defense of the First Amendment? Where are they? Because we've been so gaslit into this phony religious rhetoric, this fake claim of anti-Semitism, when we have the real anti-Semitic white nationalist sympathizer sitting in the White House. This is a deep, deep sickness, a deep, deep disease that we are allowing this to go on in plain sight. And it's all the more reason to, forgive me for getting back to my drumbeat, why we need to remove the fascist in chief. Because as much as I want these people out of business, and as much as I want people on both sides of the aisle, and for God's sakes, another friggin' issue for these Democrats to be called out on, how any of them could continue to support them. And Al Green, who joined us yesterday, is one of the few that even recently has voted against sending more money to Israel. It's utterly unthinkable. But as much as I want that to be enough, the only way that we are really going to save Gaza, save the West Bank by being taken over by these set-over terrorists backed by their fascist government, is to get Donald Trump out of power now. And I want to just shout out to the Israeli people, because the Israeli people hate AIPAC as much as we do. And the Israeli people have been a model in resistance, a model in protesting. They have been flooding the streets of Tel Aviv since the weeks after October 7th, demanding an end to this war. The proportion of Israelis that fill the streets in protest of the Netanyahu regime is exponentially larger than our protests in this country. They are a model for us. So I just want to thank everybody who is standing up in this moment right now. This has nothing to do with religion. This has nothing to do with ethnic background. This is about humanity. This is about right and wrong. This is about crime versus justice. This is about what you're fucking living for in this life. Are you living to defend and stay silent in the wake of a genocide? No. So, thank you all very much for standing up. Thank you for taking your place. Thank you for not thinking that speaking out against a modern-day genocide backed by the United States of America is some fringe issue. Thank you for not being afraid to be labeled terrorists when the real terrorists are the ones perpetuating this all.
Thank you, Jessica. Stop the killing right away. Have a spine, don't delay. Have a spine, don't delay. Stop the killing right away. Stop the killing right away. Free, free Palestine. Free, free Palestine. Free, free Palestine. Free, free Palestine.
My name's Jessica Denson.
and I'm the founder of the Removal Coalition, and I've been working pretty closely with Flair. We had our major event yesterday called Remove the Regime, and we scheduled it on 9/2, but we kind of had events on both sides for people to join us early or stay late. And I've been very outspoken myself on this issue since very early on. I think it's unthinkable that we're living in a society in 2025 where we are afraid to call it genocide, the mass slaughter of children, the killing of journalists, the funding from the United States of America to do this, and then prosecuting those or targeting those who speak out against it as terrorists. I couldn't not be here today to support this. You know, some people went home early. I made sure that I stayed here today to support this because the silence is deafening. The silence is absolutely deafening.
Absolutely. What does it say about our society where hundreds of people die every day, and yet we just go about our day like nothing's happening?
Well, like I was saying when I was speaking, it's very parallel to the democracy crisis, right? Kind of the complacency of so many people that are not out here with us in the streets, that literally see our democracy going up in flames and are just thinking it's another normal day and they don't have to stand up. You know, we can borrow the saying from the Nazis, from Nazi Germany, where, you know, they came for the immigrants, I wasn't one of them. They came for these people, I wasn't one of them. They came for the Jews, I wasn't them. And then they came for me and nobody was left. You know, like I said, this is not about religion. This is not about ethnicity. It's about right and wrong. We have terrorists. Some wear suits, some wear headbands, some call themselves Christian, Muslim, Jews. That's not what it's about. It's about good and evil. And we have to be willing to root it out in every way. And the only way we're going to do it, as far as I'm concerned, yeah, we got to put these people out of business, but we got to get Benjamin Netanyahu's best friend in the White House. You know, him, Epstein, and Trump were all very, very tight. We have to root them all out to stop this mass slaughter.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Absolutely right about that. I mean, only war criminals get invited to the White House.
Yeah.
Putin, Netanyahu, and they get treated like royalty when they come here.
Yeah.
So what does it say about our country?
It's the same playbook that these guys are all operating by. I mean, Donald Trump was facing criminal indictments in 4 different jurisdictions when he illegally took back the White House in a race that I don't believe he won. Same thing with Benjamin Netanyahu, under criminal indictment, facing a corruption trial, when he allowed the terrorists that he gave billions of dollars in suitcases to, who he was in collaboration with, to slaughter his people on October 7th for a mass distraction campaign. Just like Donald Trump is trying to send troops into American cities where they're not needed. Authoritarians, dictators thrive in chaos. That is their chaos is their currency. So we have to starve them of that and take our power.
And before you go,
yeah,
what can people do? How can they fight back against this corruption?
You need to demand impeachment and removal of this administration. You need to do that. That's why I formed the Removal Coalition, because collectively, this resistance movement has generated millions. I think our largest No Kings was maybe 10 million people in the street. Those opportunities for messaging cannot be squandered. It can't just be, we don't like ICE, we don't like this, we're resisting, we're unhappy, we don't like the oligarchs, the billionaires. It has to be a demand that our representatives in government do something about it. And the only constitutional measure that I'm aware of is impeachment and removal. So my focus has been to shift the narrative. I don't care that he was impeached twice before. 3rd time's a charm. I don't care that Democrats are in the minority. It would only take moving 4 or 5 Republicans. And for God's sakes, this morning, I saw Marjorie Taylor Green cross the aisle to stand with Democrats. So nothing is impossible. And you can't accept defeat from the outset and expect to get out of this. You have to expect adherence to the Constitution and not stand for anything less.
So, yeah, you were asking in the chat, is that Jessica? Yes, that obviously was me, after not getting much sleep for several days. But so grateful to be there, so grateful to stand with all of you Complacency is complicity. Complacency is complicity. And I know if you're watching this, you're not complacent. So I'm not talking about you, but I'm talking about anyone living in America in the summer of 2025, when an illegal president, the equivalent of a Confederate soldier taking the presidency after the Civil War, assumed an office that I don't believe he legally won and started instituting the absolute sabotage of the Constitution of the United States. 8 months into it, what are you doing? What are you doing? Speaking of the Constitution, I want to announce the next major event of the Removal Coalition. They reached out to me, and when I heard that they were all on board for impeachment and removal, I said, I'm all in. And so I'm very happy to be partnering with the We Are America March. They are literally bringing on foot, physically 160 miles, a copy of the United States Constitution that has been written out by children, actually, from Philadelphia to Washington, D.C. This starts tomorrow in Philly at Independence Hall. I'm going to put the exact mobilized thing up there on the screen so you can see the details. At Independence Mall, People's Plaza starts tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. in Philadelphia. They're going to have a kickoff rally. We are actually going to be streaming that rally right here on Lights On at 9:30, maybe 9:40. Tomorrow morning Eastern time. So please watch that if you can. Please join them in person. More importantly, if you can, if you're anywhere in the Philadelphia area, please join the We Are America March. You can find out all of the details about it at weareamericamarch.com, weareamericamarch.com. As I mentioned, this is going to culminate in Washington, D.C. on the 19th, which is a Friday. So that will be the next major event, major rally that the Removal Coalition is supporting in the nation's capital just this month, 2 weeks from now, September 19th. If you can join us, please join us. Again, we're going to do, again, like I said, I got on board because they're all for impeachment. They're for the Constitution, which of course includes an impeachment clause that we need to be using now. They are for ending executive overreach. They're for all of the downstream issues that are being violated right now, that are blatant constitutional violations, and restoring and demanding that these members of Congress honor their oath. That rally on the 19th, once again, is going to culminate in congressional visits, which, as we talked about today, are so incredibly effective and important. And so that's why I'm all behind it. We are moving the needle, and this is the way that this is the way we're going to do it. This is the way we're going to do it. We have to move our elected leaders, and we have to refuse to support them, by the way, until they answer to our demands. There's, for God's sakes, there's no time. There's no time for anything else. So please join us tomorrow morning at 9:30, 9:40 on the Jessica Denson YouTube channel. Please subscribe if you're not already. Actually, also turn on notifications. I forget to remind people of this, but I get a lot of people who tell me they don't see this popping up in their feed, even if they're subscribed. So make sure you're turning on your notifications. Subscribe. I think actually we probably even have more subscribers than we're showing, but we deal with all kinds of algorithm issues. So please support by subscribing to the Jessica Denson YouTube channel. As I mentioned, that fight that has been my life for years, you can support at thejessicadenson.com/donate, thejessicadenson.com/donate. Thank you so much, genuinely, for the support that you have given and continue to give me. And what else? What else, everybody? Please stay involved. I just want to put up one more thing before I leave you. This is from Sons of Liberty. They put out a statement. They're one of the members of the Removal Coalition, a progressive group of veterans that showed up for our Veterans March that happened before the rally on 9/2, always been supportive. And they put out a statement saying they're going to be shifting gears, so to speak, for protest actions and only supporting events that are either involving direct action to Congress or are backed by the Removal Coalition, because they see the importance of having protests with a point, having protests with an objective and with a demand. As I quoted from my Pakistani Lyft driver who took me to the rally on Tuesday morning, you have to demand solutions with these protests. And he was just commenting how the American protests seem to be so soft compared to what he's used to in his country. We have to realize the severity of what we're dealing with and make our demands match that. So to everyone who has been in this fight with me, once again, from the bottom of my heart, I love you so much. Such a joy to meet all of you this week. And until next time, let your light shine.